1996, the city of Cleveland celebrates the 200th anniversary of its founding by Moses Cleveland. The city's rise from a struggling malaria-infested frontier settlement to a modern economic community can be viewed as a result of steadily improving economic development.
Moses Cleveland's trip to this area was part of a business deal. A group of investors called the Connecticut Land Company bought a large section of northeastern Ohio from the state of Connecticut for $1.2 million. Cleveland, who led the surveying expedition west in 1796, was a Yale graduate, a lawyer, and a state legislator, as well as a founder of the land company. The land he surveyed is often called the Western Reserve of Connecticut. The surveying party located their settlement along the southern shore of Lake Erie at the mouth of the Cuyahoga River. The waterways, it was felt, would facilitate transportation and growth in the lands of the Western Reserve. Cleveland paid the Six Nations Indians 2 beef cattle, 100 gallons of whiskey, and 500 pounds in New York state currency for the right to settle the eastern banks of the Cuyahoga. By the end of summer, Cleveland's party had divided the settlement into a central 10-acre public square surrounded by many 220-acre lots. Lorenzo Carter, the first white pioneer to settle this disease-ridden swampland, ran a tavern and post office, operated a ferry, and controlled the local Indian trade. By 1824, Cleveland was a thriving port, shipping goods worth over $234,000. However, overall growth for the new city remained slow because of the harsh and inhospitable conditions. In 1832, the Ohio and Erie Canal, connecting Lake Erie at Cleveland with the Ohio River at Portsmouth, provided water transportation to southern Ohio, the eastern United States, and overseas. Cleveland was given 2 federal grants for harbor improvement to handle the increase in shipping. Population grew rapidly during this time, and in 1836, Cleveland was incorporated as a city. German and Irish laborers came to work off their passages to America by digging the 4-foot-deep canal. Shipping on the canal and on Lake Erie made Cleveland the area's main industrial link to the world. Workers moved in to process, store, and transfer goods shipped through the port. Warehouses were built. Farmers sent livestock and crops for outside markets through Cleveland. Machinery to open foundries and factories could easily be shipped into the city. Banks moved in to finance the new undertakings. Insurance companies opened offices to protect shipping and emergent industry. In a scant 10 years, Cleveland had grown into a major Great Lakes port. The boom town of 1840 didn't develop without its share of economic strife, however. In 1836, the new Columbus Street Bridge allowed people to deliver goods directly into Cleveland and bypass Ohio City on the Cuyahoga's west bank. Violence erupted into what was called the Bridge War. Nearly 1,000 Ohio City men carrying clubs, rocks, and rifles fought with Cleveland's mayor and militiamen, armed with muskets and an ancient cannon. The battle finally stopped after the Cleveland Marshal posted guards at both ends of the bridge to keep traffic moving. By 1850, the canal was eclipsed in importance by the faster and more efficient railroad. The first train ran between Cleveland and Columbus in 1851. At the end of the decade, Cleveland had become a major rail center. 5 lines linked the city not only with Columbus, but with Chicago, Cincinnati, and the eastern United States. The iron rails for Cleveland's first railway had to be imported from England, but by the mid-1850s, the opening of the Sault Ste. Marie Canal connecting Lakes Huron and Superior, the discovery of iron ore in the Mesabi Range, and the mining of coal in Pennsylvania, Ohio, and West Virginia all decreed that Cleveland would become a leading center of metal manufacture. Later, the Civil War, with its demand for cannons and rail transportation, firmly established the city as an excellent place to locate industrial and manufacturing plants.
While Cleveland's geographical location contributed much to its early economic success, The driving forces behind the area's progress in the latter half of the 19th century were the industrialists.
Wealthy entrepreneurs such as John D. Rockefeller, Charles F. Brush, Jephthah Wade, and Ambrose Swasey built elegant mansions along Euclid Avenue. The street, known as Millionaire's Row, was said to be one of the most beautiful in the country. While the magnificent houses and spacious lawns are gone, the businesses these men founded live on. In 1852, Charles A. Otis opened the Lake Erie Iron Works on Whiskey Island. After the Civil War, Otis studied European methods of steelmaking in England and Prussia. The acid open hearth process reduced costs, production time, and the carbon content of steel. Otis Steel merged with Jones and Laughlin Steel Company of Pittsburgh in 1942, joining together the oldest two U.S. steelmakers. The company expanded rapidly during World War II by making steel plate for battleships. When Ling Temco Vought Corporation, LTV, acquired J&L in 1974, it became the third largest steel producer in the U.S. Other steel companies which invested heavily in Cleveland were the United States Steel Company, now closed, and Republic Steel, which today, as part of LTV, operates a world-class continuous caster in Cleveland. 1856 saw businessman Jephthah Wade move to Cleveland. The telegraph company he founded, Western Union, grew into the world's first telecommunications conglomerate. Perhaps because of his own difficulties in finding a job upon graduation, bookkeeper John D. Rockefeller didn't fail to notice the many oil refineries springing up on the banks of the Cuyahoga. This son of a patent medicine salesman from Strongsville, Ohio, decided the burgeoning oil industry was the place to invest. In 1870, he chartered the Standard Oil Company, together with Samuel Andrews and other investors. This company became Ohio's first million-dollar corporation and made Rockefeller the richest man in the world. By 1882, Rockefeller owned 90% of the nation's refining capacity, and Cleveland became the leading oil refinery city in the nation. Standard Oil remained a familiar presence on the economic front under such names as Exxon, Esso, and Sohio. Today, the company lives on as part of multinational British Petroleum, with important oil leases on Alaska's North Slope. U.S. headquarters of BP America are still in the city. Sherwin-Williams Company, one of the country's leading paint manufacturers, built an office and warehouse along Canal Street in the Flats. The company founders were Edwin P. Williams, Sereno Peck Fenn, and 24-year-old Henry Sherwin, who invested his entire life savings of $2,000 to become a partner. Francis Harrington Glidden founded the Glidden Company in 1875. As Adrian Joyce, who bought the company in 1917, became increasingly aware of the link between oil in food and oil in paint, he experimented with the use of soybeans, both as a nutritious food additive and as a color retention agent in paint. Glidden still retains offices in the Cleveland area. Most oil company roughnecks of the late 19th century prayed to find oil and not natural gas. After John D. Rockefeller and the Standard Oil Company began using gas for energy and actually drilled for gas, the Hope Natural Gas Company built a pipeline leading from Standard Oil's West Virginia gas fields across the mountains to Ohio. By 1902, the East Ohio Gas Company had continued the pipeline north to Akron and into Cleveland. By 1987, it was serving 1 million customers.